Alright, so when did you first read the Harry Potter books?
I probably first read them in about 1999, 2000.
I think I started when I was about 14. I think my mum was an English teacher at the school I went to, and in the summer holidays she brought the book home from the school library and went, everyone's been reading this. Apparently it's really good. Give it a go. And it was Chamber of Secrets. So I read Chamber of Secrets first in like a day and a half while on holiday, and then went back and read the first one, then read the second one again, and then the third one, and that was all there was at the time.
I first got the Harry Potter books when I was in 5th grade. My mom brought them home for me.
I started reading Sorcerer's Stone when I was really, really young, like probably like 1st or 2nd grade.
I first read the first book in October of 1998 when I read an article in the New York Times that said there's this new book and it's British and it's about boarding schools and it's about magic, and I have always loved British books and books about British boarding schools.
Well, first time I read it, because I made sure to read it like very slowly and kind of get the details, and I kept on thinking like this is so different from the movies.
I read the first book when it first came out as a child. I just couldn't get into it. I was reintroduced and rebrought into the world in college with all my friends and Star Kid and everyone, and that's when I really dove into the universe.
My mom, in her office, her assistant, who was like in her 40s, was reading them, and she was like, "Have you read these yet?" And they looked like children's books, and I was like, "Roberta, those are children's books, and you're a middle-aged woman. I don't understand." So I read all 3, and that was before the 4th came out.
I remember I got the first book when I was probably like 10 or 11, 12, somewhere around there, right around the same age Harry is in the books.
Kind of like an instant obsession. Like after the first one, I just like went crazy reading all of them.
Things that, you know, take it out of the traditional children's book into what children's books should be or used to be, which is more engaging and doesn't just show the happy, fun side of things. It shows, you know, that you could be scared, you can be legitimately scared, and kids are allowed to be that way.
6 is my favorite one. It's the one where Voldemort's history is explored.
So I ordered it from the UK. It came out in July, and I read Prisoner of Azkaban pretty much in one night. I was pregnant. I was 9 months pregnant, and I knew I had to finish it before I went into labor. Yes, I named my child Harry.
You know, it's all about the heart. You think that you can change the world. You think you can kind of take on anything because you're still very naive. And you can see that in Harry in the first books, where he's no question. He thinks he can see his parents again. He thinks that he can beat Voldemort. And then as he gets older, it becomes more about like, no, he understands his limitations. And now he has to just decide where his place is and what he has to do. And even if that means sacrificing himself, which is much more of a teen feeling.
So how did you find it reading it as an adult, and how do you think it affects adults as opposed to affects children who read it?
I don't actually believe that there should be a difference between young adult fiction and adult fiction, if you will.
When you're a kid, everything is so big, and I think it's so amazing when a book, even when you're adults, can make such a huge, expansive universe and still make it huge and big. That is talent, and that's really necessary, especially for the subject matter that you're dealing with in these books.
I think revisiting them, the experience of revisiting them is maybe more positive than any other one I've had when I reread a book that I read when I was a child. They really hold up over time.
There's always something you can get from it, reading as a kid or an adult.
I don't think I connect as well to the first 3 anymore, although I do love the 3rd one.
I have read the books as an adult. I think for adults, for other adults, I'm not sure. I think it's a very individual thing. Either they read it with their children and they kind of fall in love because they engage with their children and they see the excitement of their children. I personally think J.K.R. is a skilled enough writer to add that element of suspense that people don't estimate, like they don't think exists within children's books, but she's able to craft something that makes you keep guessing until the end. And who doesn't love a good mystery?
I've read it as a child, and I've since reread it, the books, as an adult, and I think that speaking of like the moral issues, I think when I read it as a child, like good and evil was so black and white, you know? Harry was good, Voldemort was bad.
Even now when I reread them, I find new details that I didn't realize the first or second or third time reading them.
I love a well-developed villain. I mean, obviously don't think he's a good guy or anything, but his history is interesting, and it really is so complicated and allows you to understand and view his transformation, and I think it's so brilliant. So I think now, I mean, I have a positive experience rereading them, but I definitely notice different things than when I was younger.
Now as an adult, I read it and I can see the gray area, which is an amazing trait for a writer to have, to write for both children and adults, to cater to the black and white that children see, and then the gray area that, you know, these Death Eaters are people too. You don't know their history, you don't know how that they fell into it, blah blah blah. And then the Snape character, I think, as an adult, I really appreciate him more, falling into something just because of love and how love complicates things and how love brings out different sides of people, and you just can't judge everyone the same.
I really like Joe's sense of humour, I think, and I think it's a very British sense of humour, and it's very kind of tongue-in-cheek, and every time, and this is something that people I've spoken to have criticised about the movies a little bit, is every time it gets to a really sort of dramatic point, someone breaks the tension. Ron and Hermione are kissing in the last one, and Harry's like, there's a war going on here, just in case you've forgotten. You know, that's really British, and I like that she's kind of got that kind of tongue-in-cheek. She doesn't take her work too seriously either.